Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about the importance of partnerships. I'm hoping this phrase in itself seems obvious. So we're going to focus today on the importance of partnerships to advance interoperability, and along with that, extending that to the importance of standards, national, international standards, and how we see this as vastly improving outcomes and efficiency in interoperability. So as Frank said, Gerald and I are speaking together today because of the growing success in our partnerships, and we've been working together on a few things. And I also think, I think maybe Frank heard our names as both being alliterations, Gerald Dudley and Holly Howard, and thought they'd flow nicely in this presentation. So that works well too. Eric Kolb is also here, my esteemed colleague and GIS manager from Google. He's been working closely with Gerald on the Work Zone data exchange and other things, so he's here to support and answer questions as well. So, okay, let's get going. Okay, so a little bit of an intro and welcome. We're both going to talk about current work that we're doing and how partnership communication improves outcomes, as I mentioned. Gerald will talk about USDOT, and I'll talk about transforming data from partners to the map. We'll talk about these wins of public-private partnership, the Work Zone data exchange, and then some excitement around the national address database. And then some brainstorming fun with the Mentimeter interspersed. I've already really enjoyed this Mentimeter in this conference so far. So I already used my alliteration joke, but as Frank said, you could go ahead and check out our bios at a later date. And I'm going to pass it to Gerald to do our first Mentimeter question to kick us off. And Emily, tell me how this works.
Great.
Pass it to you.
Thanks, Holly. So apparently you guys have been doing Menti already. You guys are experts at it. If you're new to the room, please go to www.menti.com and enter the access code. And we're going to start off with the first question. What important feature type would you like to access or share more broadly, but find it difficult? So getting to, like what do you want to share or access, but can't get to or have difficulty sharing?
So to get to the results, does Emily pop over there? Can you see those? Emily, are you there?
Holly, I can help. It's Jamie. If you want, I can pull it up and share. It just will take me a second.
Hi, it's Emily.
It's Emily.
Microphone
okay.
in the room. I do have them up. So Holly, go ahead and stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
And hopefully
Great.
Mine will pop up. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I haven't participated yet.
Wow. Eric, are you adding for us? I hope we can add some things in there. So, Gerald, I'm going to kick this to you, but while this is still happening, I just want to say how interesting the parcels is here. I think Eric and I will certainly take note of that.
It got really big, didn't it?
Certainly.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was taking the survey myself, but it's certainly interesting that parcels are so large.
It's, I mean, because there's parcels, there's also small ones that are, say, parcels as well that
right.
Are, not being aggregated together. Parcels.
Ashes, streets, work zones, footprints. Very interesting.
All right. So we'll take note of this, and I'll pop back to my slides. And we welcome conversation on this after as well, of course. We'll keep this going. So, okay, so I'll pass it to Gerald to talk about Bureau of Transportation Statistics.
Great. So we're going to talk about importance of partnerships and advance interoperability. I want to start off with just a little bit of background and context for the U.S. Department of Transportation and what our goals are. First and foremost, always mission number one is safety. We want to prevent fatalities and reduce injuries across the network. Secondly, we want to lead and foster the development and deployment of innovative practices and technologies. These innovations are closely tied to safety and efficiency. New technologies are certainly capable of saving lives and reducing injury, but they also foster efficient networks, which makes the market better and faster, and facilitate efficient travel and shipping. Infrastructure is the backbone of our nation. Building and maintaining it enables most Americans to travel when and how they want to. It gives them access to opportunities, education, healthcare, and much more. Also, a well-functioning infrastructure promotes safety and fosters market competition. And finally, we want to be accountable to the public. We're working hard to make sure that everybody is safe, everybody has opportunities, or as much opportunity as possible. And we work diligently to maximize the social benefit of the transportation network. Next slide, please. The department relies heavily on geospatial data to ensure that we meet our goals. And in fact, all but 2 operating administrations use geospatial data to analyze and improve safety, operations, innovation, and infrastructure. A few examples: the FAA. The GIS is really the foundation for its emergency operations. Analysts incorporate spatial analysis and custom modeling to identify gaps in mission service areas and to optimize resource allocation. The Federal Highway Administration created an American routable network, or is creating one right now. It's a GIS network of roads, which is ideal for modeling traffic flow. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration leverages GIS to better visualize crashes and looking at how large trucks are involved. They integrate their data with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and Federal Highway Administration data. So they're looking at, they're combining all of those layers to look at hotspots and analyze where all those crashes occur. The Federal Railroad Administration modernized its rail layer, its network, using analysis tools and geospatial network analysis. They've also been effective and successful in getting railroad crossing into wayfinding applications like Waze. So if you're using your Waze and you come to the railroad crossing and it says, hey, there's a railroad crossing here, or it's warning you about it, that's the FRA's work right there. The Transit Administration forecasts transit ridership demand using GTFS, which is another data specification that describes transit operations, that describes routes, stops, schedules, services, and things like that. So they're using that standardized data with a GIS to understand how transit works in America. The Maritime Administration translated text descriptions to spatial data for waterway network data set and distributed the final product to the ports to assist them with analysis and tactical decisions. And then I won't go on with the full list, but I should mention BTS since I work for them. The offices we're within the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology. BTS manages the transportation theme. That's my job. That's what I do. And which is a national geospatial data asset. We manage national geospatial data assets for the department, and we also publish the National Transportation Atlas database. So next slide, please. So how do we use all this geospatial data to improve safety, make the transportation network more robust, use innovation to do all that stuff, and make the network, modernize the network, basically. My daughter just walked in the house, so you may hear some dogs barking. So The era of connected and automated vehicles has begun. If you've ever carried your phone into your car with a navigation app on it, you're already driving a connected vehicle. If you've been lucky enough to buy a new car recently, chances are they have an embedded device that you'll use for navigation and communication. You may even have a new car that has automated features with it, hands-free parking, enhanced cruise control, or even collision avoidance. These technologies are certainly incredible, but they only hint really at the transportation revolution to come. Think about 50 years from now, you'll hop in your car, you'll sit back and enjoy an autonomous vehicle ride, completely hands-free. The autonomous vehicles, to get to the hands-free, will have to rely on multiple and redundant systems to navigate the network, free of human intervention. And when we get there, because we've removed human intervention, we'll be able to eliminate human error. The goal here is, get to the point where we have 0 deaths on the transportation network. We fully believe that through innovation and the iteration of getting the network better and the transportation technology better, we really can ultimately reach 0 deaths on the transportation network. The department is so motivated by the possibilities of this that they're promoting the 0 deaths campaign, and they're shifting focus from crash survivability to crash avoidance or crash prevention. So the question now is, how do we enable these automated driving technologies so we can reach our goal of 0 deaths faster? And my answer to that question is, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not an expert in all the systems that it'll take to make those vehicles autonomous and 100% safe, or as close to that as possible. But what I do know is that geospatial data plays an important role there. Next slide, please. So if we're to effectively inform human and automated drivers about hazardous navigation, we have to provide easy, fast, and reliable access to accurate geospatial information. And this information has to describe the transportation network. And one way to foster that easy, fast, reliable, accurate data is to foster data sharing through data standardization. And data standardization requires data producers to build and publish their data according to a community recognized specification. The specification defines content, data types, relationships, format, and business rules. And because each agency creates, stores, and transfer the data in the same way, the need to convert their data from the local format to the destination format is eliminated. So that makes data exchange really easy. We're all on the same page. You know what to expect. You can write applications against that, and it'll work anywhere that data is standardized. So standardized data are vendor and software neutral. And maybe Holly and Eric can help me with attest to this, but it seems that industry kind of moves towards a standard when one is recognized or implemented. It just makes it easy for them. They don't have to write conversion techniques for every data source that they consume. And on the flip side of that coin is that data producers or data publishers don't have to send multiple copies to multiple vendors in different formats. So it really kind of reduces the burden of data exchange on both sides of the exchange. Standards also foster innovation. Applications are written against a single standard, as I said, or work anywhere. So you have one standard, an application written against that standard will now work for anybody that's using that kind of formatted data. So you can write once and use multiple times. Partnerships are really important in standardization. If you think about you're writing at your desk and you run a program with your own data and it does the specific things you want it to do, but it's not very useful for other people. So standards really thrive through consensus. You need an interest group to gather around and support a standard or a specification. If you write a spec and then leave it alone and there's nobody there to help you with it, it really just kind of sits on the desk and isn't very helpful. So having that interest group to publish and advocate for the standard and specification is really very, very important. I want you to think about standards are not a one and done kind of thing. We need to consider that standards are a process that you've got to build interest, you've got to come to an agreement what you're trying to do, and then it takes on this life cycle of iterations of making it better, changing it, and making sure that it fits the use cases that it's intended to fit. Next slide, please. And some of the lessons we've learned at the department, or at least I have over the past few years that I've worked at the department, we want to avoid stovepipes, or as Steve Lewis calls them, columns of excellence. So, we all have our mission and we're all focused on that mission and we try and meet that mission in the most efficient way. And that typically means we're creating data and applications and they're all focused on that local individual mission. What that does is separates everything that you do from the people around you, and you can't really share or can't see the bigger picture. So let's not work in those stovepipes. We have to work within the community and make sure that we have a broad look and not a narrow one. Standards serve the communities that develop them. So if we're coming up with a transportation network specification, it's going to serve that group well. But if you only have a narrow band of participants developing that specification, it becomes less useful. So you want to make sure that you're really reaching out into the community and getting as many people and organizations as involved as possible, so that the spec or the standard is broad and is useful to as many people as possible within the community. And as I said before, the term standards development, I don't really, it honestly kind of bothers me because it doesn't really describe what really needs to happen around a standard. A standard, if you're taking on a standard, it is a life cycle. It is a program that needs to have a robust start and then a plan for its life cycle. And then finally, we constantly have to advocate for data standardization, like I'm doing here. If we stop beating the drum, people will go back to their stovepipes and forget about, take the easy route and just concentrate on their mission and not really think about what's better for the community or the public. And then that final point there is let's be vigilant. Let's stand on our soapboxes and keep this message alive. Next slide, please. And that brings us to our next mentee. With what organizations do you partner or collaborate? Talking about partnerships and collaboration, please input your top organizations and kind of get an idea of where everybody's working or with whom everybody's working.
Okay, stop sharing for a sec. Good answer so far. I love these. Okay, I think we don't have that much more time. Is that right? So I'm going to keep going here to the next question. Oh, no, we don't have the question.
No, I didn't get to see the results.
Did you still want the results up there? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have a peek at it real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to do a time check. Go ahead. Oh, can we record them? We can record the. Yeah, let's see.
If we're behind time, don't worry about it. Sorry if I took too long. I was being vigilant and advocating.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have the Menti results to share out. So go ahead and keep on going.
Okay. Okay, so I just went through a bit of a use case on ours. So at Google Maps has been around about 15 years, and Daryl was talking about creating standards originally, but I think Google kind of went out and created this map, certainly with partnerships in mind. But the importance of partnerships has certainly grown over the past several years. Initially, to do this the best, most up-to-date map possible with 1 billion users, there's multiple ways that we need to create data. So machine learning is really important for us, internal operations. But then this, we rely on so many of you, and we appreciate all of the partnerships that we have with you to bring this authoritative, high-quality, critical data to the map. Many features are not possible at all without these partnerships. So one that comes to mind that we use an example a lot is political boundaries, right? Like you can imagine we can't just create our own political boundaries and make decisions about that. So that's one that we certainly get from authoritative partners. And another one, in a few slides, I'll go through an example of COVID testing centers and COVID vaccination locations where we really relied heavily on partners for that information. So when there's not a standard, we kind of never know what we're going to get with the data that we receive. Right? We really hope that people want to contribute data to Google Maps and and help us keep the map up to date. And then there's lots of feature types that do not have a standard, and with that, you kind of never know what you're going to get. This is my Cracker Jack reference of what's the prize you're going to get inside when we get a data set. But the important thing to think of here is that it's not that the data is wrong or inaccurate that we're receiving, it's that data could have been created for a completely different purpose. They did not create that data just for Google Maps, right? Everyone's creating their data for their purpose, and to have to kind of shift it and recreate it to put into a Google template or another template, as Daryl mentioned, you might have to send it to Google or another wayfinding agency, with a different standard, and that's just not efficient at all, of course. And so there's just so many nuances when you're not using a standard. Another Menti. So this I think is interesting. We had a couple. I think this is interesting for NSGIC as well. You might have answered this question previously, but we'd love to know which addressing do you use if you use one or if you don't. And if you're not in an agency that uses one, you can either not participate or you can just say not sure.
Holly, can you see the results?
I can.
Awesome.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, great. Well, we'll pop back to the slides. I think we have one more. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly do my points of interest use case. This is for points of interest. So just as an example for Google, let's say we're getting many different partners giving us data, or we get a suggestion on the map for a point of interest. This is for Google Dublin. You can see we're getting 3 different data types. Someone's giving us a phone number, someone's giving us like the category of the corporate office. All of this kind of has to go into this matching algorithm to find out if it's matching to the correct point have what's visible on the map. So for this instance, you can see, so we have Google EMEA and Google Dublin are both really close to each other. And this I'll show later a little bit with the COVID testing centers. But let's say you wanted to change the hours of Google EMEA and not Google Dublin. You need to have this specific addressing information to make sure that you're matching to that correct point, or you're changing the business hours or the category of that different point. So, you know, again, like if we're getting these all in the same exact standard, it's much easier to do this matching for, you know, certainly for geocodes. This is just a quick plug. Hopefully you have, many of you have used this before. We are hoping to improve this program, but it's the Geodata Upload program where, you know, we welcome bulk authoritative data to Google, and you can use this for, we primarily use it for roads, geocodes, and political boundaries, but we're always introducing more feature types to this. We just sent out a survey. Hopefully many of you took it to see how we can improve this site, and we're looking towards focus groups and everything to see how we could be more interoperable. Eric's doing a lot of work too to see how we can do more platform-based interoperability to augment or, you know, in addition to enhance this program. Okay. So what standards do you use for addressing? This is kind of a broader topic than the FGDC, but do you use your own internal agency format, state and country standards, or internationally recognized standards like ISO, or you're not sure? I like this question and see how it might change based on the new agreement between NSGIC and OGC that happened yesterday. Maybe there'll be more on the internationally recognized standards in the near future. We'll see. Thank you so much for recording all of this, Emily and Jamie and team. Okay, I'll go to the
Our
next
pleasure.
one. Okay, the next one is, how hard would it be for your organization to convert to a new standard? So if you're using FGDC, how difficult would it be for you to transfer to the NINA standard or to an ISO or to an international standard? How much red tape do you see? And these are just examples. You know, is it budget? Is it approval? Is it easy, medium, or difficult? Oh, too bad. Better. So I think I do see this as a good follow-up question on, you know, we can do in the conversation, what, you know, what makes it more difficult and not as we move forward and kind of follow up from this conversation. I think these will be some really interesting points. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of cruise through this, but this is just an example of the format that we ask for our POIs. We have required, preferred, and optional in the essence of time, but that's for this is for COVID testing centers near me. You know, but if we had this standard in place for points of interest, I just did this presentation in the OGC conference last week talking about for the standards working group that's working on POIs. You know, these are a lot of the issues that we had with POIs when the partner doesn't match our schema. And these green ones are ones that we could solve if we did have a standard. So these slides are available, but in the essence of time, I'm just gonna kind of zip through those. But I think there's some, you know, really interesting, you know, points here to see how much could be solved with efficiency of standards and of course the partnerships. Okay, I'm gonna pass it back to Daryl to talk about a few wins with the work zone data exchange and the NAD.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, so a couple wins. The work zone data exchange is working really well. A lot of participation, built a really nice community. And the work zone data exchange is a simple open standard for sharing a subset of data about planned work zone events on roadways. Next slide, please. So, you know, it's a very simple, easy process. We gather community, talk about what the specification should be, wrote it or are writing it now. We're on the fourth iteration, our update cycle, focusing on, advocating for the spec, getting out there, make sure that we're trying to get it broadly adopted across the US, and hopefully we'll save lives with it. That's pretty straightforward, simple plan. Next slide, please. We have 5 subgroups under the working group. We have the update subgroup. They focus on what features to add or modify. We have a worker presence subgroup, and they're working on how to describe whether or not workers are in the work zone, and what content will they use to do that, looking at not only static feeds, but live feeds as well. We have a technical assistance subgroup, and they identify the best practices in implementing the feeds, document that, and also help any organizations or agencies that are new to the Workzone data spec and help them get feeds stood up. The Smart Workzone data subgroup is looking at how to model Workzone devices that mark where Workzones begin or end or monitor activity in the Workzone. And then the specification extension subgroup, which I'm honored to chair with Eric Kolb and Frank Winters and Wayman Huang. We look at ways to leverage the Workzone data specification and hopefully bring more people to it. One example we use is restrictions or load clearances. That was included in the Workzone spec already. We're just kind of teasing it out a little bit and making it more useful to a broader audience. Next slide, please. So we're doing pretty well on participation. The US DOT did put some money out there to encourage participation. Grants were awarded to the states in blue and the states in blue and orange, and a combination thereof actually have feeds stood up now. And then the states in green have committed to standing up feeds. So, we're at the infancy of this. This is the beginning of the game, but we're starting to build interest and starting to see kind of the snowball effect. Every day, people are more and more interested and are participating or willing to participate more. Next slide, please. So our next mentee, how familiar are you with the Workzone data specification? Not familiar, kind of familiar, familiar, and very familiar. I'll put down very familiar for me. Well, good to see we're reaching a newer audience. I'll be around to answer questions if you have them.
Just let me know when to put the slides away. You good?
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Cool.
Can you see this?
Next slide, please.
Are we on this slide?
That was the mentee.
Oh, can you see? Am I sharing the wrong one?
Yes. I'll do my best with these slides, but I'm feeling a little nervous because Steve Lewis, who wrote them, is listening in. So the NAD is a national address database, and I invite Steve to correct me when I get something wrong. And it's a nationwide public domain of GIS addresses, and they're critical to 911 response and delivery services. And addresses are required for the next generation 911 system. In 2015, DOT agreed to lead the effort to compile the national address database by working with data partners and at all levels of government. So the local governments report to the state reports up to the federal government, and we build the national address database that way. They first met in 2015 in Lincoln, Maryland, which is right down the road from me. And they were to identify and discuss the possible options for delivering the NAD broad stakeholder representation. So we're looking at participation once again, making sure you're reaching that broader audience, capturing federal, state, local, and tribal governments, the private sector, and nonprofits and trade organizations. So next, Minty, do you provide data to the National Address Database?
Yay.
All right, that's good stuff.
Oh, in the essence of time, we're going to keep going. I think Steve is going to talk more about this in a minute, so we will. Am I sharing the right screen?
Next slide.
I think Steve will go.
So this just illustrating that participation has grown. This is how we were in the beginning. The next, yeah, again, Steve is presenting after that, and this is how it's grown. So kudos to Steve and all the NAD partners here. You guys have done a tremendous job and really doing wonderful work. Next slide, please.
So I'll jump in here with some exciting news. So I know Steve is going to elaborate on this as well, but Eric and I have been working with Steve and Frank and Daryl and others to incorporate the National Address Database in Google, and it's going splendidly. We had some really good results, and we know that we can use this as our authoritative source moving forward for geocodes in the United States. So, and I know other commercial companies are jumping in on this as well, which really like shows the essence of partnerships, and it's just really exciting that we can have this collective database. So we did the New York State one at first, and just to give an example, look at this. These are the points that we had edits for New York State with Frank's data sets. This is really exciting. And then I have another slide. So this one, for all of you that are not participating in the National Address Database, you'll see the ones that are participating in green. There's some, well, actually the New York State one is not in this. There's much more in New York, but we did it first, so it didn't show it. But you can see the ones in green who, these are edits that we're working on now to have updates from the National Address Database. So this is going to be really exciting. So for anybody that's not participating in the National Address Database, I think this would be so nice to be able to, have this one source for, additional source and to enhance geocodes in the United States. So, that's that. And then, so would you participate in the National Address Database if you knew that Google and other large map agencies would then be able to easily access your data? I think we have just one more question. Does this influence your decision? Or maybe not at all. Okay, this is good. And so it will be good. I'm sure Steve will talk more about, what does influence the decision of others to participate. So I know we just have a minute or so left, and thank you so much, everybody, for your patience with us. And I think that's it. So thank you so much, everybody. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with Daryl. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Holly.
Being here.
We'll certainly hang out for questions as long as we have.
So let's go to folks virtually first for some questions.
Hi, Frank, it's Jamie here. Jonathan Duran has a question in the chat here that says, can I get a map of Arkansas like the one you just showed for New York?
So yeah, contact us. We are working on different ways that we can display and interact with and be able to show edits that we've made from the map for different states. So we have to clarify it. We have to figure out how we're going to be able to display that. But I think we could do it in the short term and in an individual basis.
Other questions from our online folks?
I don't see any more, Frank, at this time.
Great. Anyone in the room here? I'll just add a comment that this is the news that got me up this morning. I was stoked to hear that, you know, what state or what municipality doesn't hear from the constituents saying, hey, can you get my addresses, this address into Google, you know, for all these reasons. Now there's a path forward. Send them up to the state, send them into the NAD, and we're good to go. So I think we've just planted the seed that the NAD is going to blow up and grow from. So I really am psyched about that. And my mind is just reeling with the implications of how far this just launched energy into the NAD. So really appreciate all your help and appreciate the fact that you took time to come here to tell us about all this. It's fantastic.